X ago. I mean, our aim is kind of like, you know, it's like my big influence was Watchmen. But like, as opposed to what I took from Watchmen, as opposed to the, you know, the deconstructionary superhero nonsense, I'm exaggerating, was the, you know, the idea here is this clockwork machine.
Yes.
And, you know, what it did is kind of trying to do a Watchmen type structure over 50 issues. What's the idea? And it's messier than Watchmen in dozens of ways, not least because Alan's Alan and I'm me. But it is kind of there, in that kind of like, oh right, it was fancy, we did it. And, you know, it feels enormous. It's nearly killed Jamie. That's the big thing. It's like, thank God it's ending.
Yes.
And it's hard. I mean, no one ever... It's not really hard. I've worked building sites. It's not hard.
But mentally, it's quite challenging.
But there was definitely a point around halfway through Imperial phase, which was the 5th and 6th trade.
Yes.
I just wanted it done.
Really?
Like, why are we still doing this book? And this is the thing, like, almost everybody who does the big, long one, the big, long comic runs, they don't do another one immediately.
No.
Like, quite often, like, work hard, yeah, but create your own stuff. Like, you know, I mean, Neil never did another one.
No, that's true.
You know, like, Warren finished Transnet, then spent 5 years doing, like, short comics. But,
Yes.
you know, Garth took quite a long time before doing The Boys.
Yes.
I mean, Brian Megorn, he immediately left the industry for a while before coming back with Saga. Like, once you've done it,
Yes.
it's a thing.
Yes.
But, like, it takes something out of you. And that's really one reason why we're dying. Dying is a shorter run.
Yes.
And a lot of the stuff I'm doing is deliberately like 6 issues, single statement things.
Yes.
The idea of me ever having 40 more issues to write scares the hell out of me right now.
Yes.
So yeah, that's kind of where I am now.
Okay.
But like happy, like, I did 9 trades, that's insane, you know.
I was going to ask about the relationship with Jamie, obviously, your kind of sort of marriage, sort of weird, your creative marriage.
My comics
over
wife.
many years. I mean, has it adapted and evolved over the years? How has it changed? Does it become too comfortable sometimes, or is it good because it's comfortable?
It's never comfortable.
Is it never comfortable?
He is like, I don't know. I speak to a lot of people about this quite a lot. And quite often in comics, somebody breaks in with an artist,
Yes.
or like some people come in as a team and they do their first work together, and then the industry tends to pull them apart.
Yes.
And there's rarely people like the other way around, like Sean and Ed, who of course they were brought together by the industry and they managed to stay together.
Yes.
Me and Jamie are quite unusual in that, we came in together and our precise trajectories meant neither of us were successful enough to escape the other one. Like Jamie was always slightly too left of centre to be like a mainstream Marvel artist,
Yes.
and I was never kind of like, you know, and I wasn't that writer at Marvel.
No.
So like, our kind of aesthetics always came quite close together. So by spending like 15 years in the trenches together, like more than 15 years now, you just learn each other, and that's interesting. And like, there's an enormous amount of trust, and you know, I use the word love there even. Like he's obviously Jamie's got a hypermobility problem now, which is and it's getting worse and worse as it progresses. So like we're trying to just get to the end quickly so he can recuperate. But the family of it all is really very real, and it's kind of like weird and upsetting that I won't be working with Jamie in the near future in like a comic. But it's also like, for God's sake. I mean, that's the funniest thing, because ever since I've been working with him, I've been saying, Jamie, you need to write and draw your own comics.
Yes.
All the time, write and draw your own comics, Jamie, whilst passing in the next script.
Yes.
You know, it's like, I'm Angel and Devil. And that originally Wicked it was designed so he could have every second arc off. It was going to be first arc him, second arc someone else.
Yes.
We were like thinking like Jock and the Losers, as a Jock is the main artist, but then every second arc is someone else. That's what we planned. But then Jamie decided he
sort of wanted to do all of it.
Yeah, you get a point like after we did the one arc, which was somebody else's commercial suicide, he was like, no, I kind of want to do it all now. But that otherwise he would have done like a series of mini, or maybe worked with another writer.
Yes.
I mean, I'm much more comfortable with like, I presume Jamie likes my stuff. There was definitely for long periods of time.
You weren't sure?
Yeah, I'm insecure enough to think, oh, maybe Jamie just hates his weirdly stuck with it. And there was literally a moment when I was like almost bursting in tears when I went, oh, Jamie actually likes me. So yeah, right, it's insecure.
So I guess I do want to move on to Die, obviously. I mean, obviously Die's a very different series, so I mean, working with Stephanie is obviously a very different beast to working with Jamie. I mean, I just want to talk about the genesis of the series. So let's talk about how it got started. What was the initial seed for you creatively?
Well, there's kind of 2 starts to it. One half of it is just me and Stephanie want to do a book together.
Yes.
Like she did all the covers of Journey to Mystery. Journey to Mystery, I think it's probably the best thing I did with Marvel overall. The covers were like the one coherent aesthetic element. We had art or something for every arc. I mean, Doug defined the look of the book, the book early on, but Stephanie was the person who kind of kept the aesthetics of these slightly romantic, slightly quirky covers. And it was only in the last issue of that I realised, oh wait, my editor Lauren,
Yes.
we were talking about who could do the last issue, and she suggested Stephanie.
Yes.
I had no idea that Stephanie did journals as well. So we did that issue, and it was like one of the, it's an issue which people still talk about in terms of Marvel work.
Yes.
In fact, it was just like, it was in the top 30, I think, of the best 100 issues of all time in a recent poll. Like, they're clearly wrong. But like,
But
it was very flattering to be.
Yes.
I think it was maybe 31, something like that.
Yes.
So like, this worked so well. We always go, okay, we'll do a book. That idea, we'll do a book together. Especially with Stephanie. I mean, she's done bits and pieces. She's done single issues,
Yes.
or like very short runs, but she's never actually been an ongoing.
No.
So for a few years we were talking about that, and I was trying to find the right project. There was actually something. There was two other things I was working on before then. So like we were always going to do a fantasy book, because I always kind of knew that we needed a Stephanie Hand's fantasy universe.
Yes.
And then there was specifically just me and Jamie and Ray Fawkes bumming around in San Diego like 2 years ago, over 2 years ago now, and just joking about whatever did happen to those kids in the 1980s D&D cartoon, and just just riffing like idiots.
Yes.
But it kind of stuck beneath my skin. Like, and the idea very basically having this 40-something-year-old drag back to their teenage fantasy game,
Yes.
and using it as a device to talk about how all their lives have changed, struck me as a kind of like, there's something really powerful there. And kind of like, oh no, that's interesting. I mean, Return to Narnia is a well-worn narrative structure, but like, oh no, there's something specifically interesting about that. And it got to me, because it was like that evening I was like having a big meal with Eric Stevenson and a lot of the image creators. And it just got me halfway through in this moment of like, and I just burst into tears because I kind of realised what the reason was. And it was very much, wait a sec, because the story is, one of the spoilers for Die, like one of the people who went to die, didn't come back. And essentially, it was part of you, Kieron, was part of you trapped in a fantasy year, has been trapped in a fantasy universe for like, since you were 16. How is actually being into like fantasy and all the stuff we in this film celebrate stunted me emotionally? And that kind of like, having asked yourself a really hard question is, I've tried so much of my work, but like that kind of like, it's the classic Simpsons game I've watched in my life.
Yes.
That, and so, a discussion about that seemed interesting, and especially because it bugs me like how much geek culture is, for want of a better word, pandering with nonsense. So the idea of like actually, the thing about like, we're literally going to be the biggest movie of all time. We are, the idea of some kind of geek persecution complex does not cut it anymore. And I think there was so much stuff, especially in the 80s and the early 90s. And my career as a games journalist was like defending games.
Yes.
And we don't need to do that anymore.
They're huge, because they've won basically. Games have won, and comics have won basically as well.
Yeah, and the point being there is, once you've actually won, you don't need to be as defensive anymore. You can actually start discussing stuff like grown-ups.
Yes.
That's kind of what I mean to with Die. Like the idea of like, we can unpick all this stuff without, obviously I love it.
Of course.
But like, this is all about being a mature human being. You can see, pick up and say like, even with Phonogram, this is really anti-music.
Yeah.
All like Wick did is quite, are you anti or pro these people? And it's not, the point being I'm trying to do this complicated portrait of how it quote unquote is. And Die's kind of like that, I guess.
Yes.
And the thing is, Die could have been a much smaller, like more character dread, like really like personal, intimate kind of thing. And of course, being me, I just messed that up and threw everything in.
Yes.
Like, that kind of thing. Die has ended up being about literally everything again. But people said goodbye, which is nice. I was genuinely hoping I would get over my nonsense. Like my
More particular obsessions.
Yeah, the thing about Die, actually, slightly different obsessions, which is nice.
Yes.
But as a writer, I think one of my biggest flaws, which is many, is that my tendency is to be a bit too much. Like, I don't necessarily edit well. I mean, I was looking at like when I was working with Jason,
Yes.
when we were running these dual X-Men books,
Yes.
and Jason was, he was really good at naming down why this villain is interesting, and it's something you can explain in like half a page. And I don't think this is a direct, clear storytelling. Also, I have to have like, literally, my first reissue arc on Becoming X-Men when we did the relaunch, the second issue is basically explaining the character.
Yes.
And like the fact that, any one of these ideas for Sinister would be enough. I didn't know to do all of them. And there's that ordering, and it's just kind of, it's the weakest, and it's the reason why I'll never be enormously successful. I mean, I'm much bigger than I thought I ever would be,
Yes.
but like, there's a reason why I'll never be Brian K. Vaughan, is I don't edit.
I mean, you throw everything at the wall, basically.
Which is, I stress, I'm not when you talk like that, it sounds like you're dissing people, and you're not, they're smarter than I am.
Yes.
That makes them better writers, and make me like messy. Anyway.
So does Die come from years of working in gaming, basically, from that part of your brain that you were writing about games and that you were thinking about them, so this is like a direct reaction to working as a games journalist in your previous life?
I used to say that phonogram was what I did instead of becoming a music journalist. As in, like, I did bits of music journalism, but but it was never really something I got to verge. So I tried, like, phonogram was kind of like this pustule that grew in my body, and you know, the round stit and the pus was phonogram. And like, die is kind of the same thing. I think die is very much the sister book to phonogram in that it's quite intimate.
Yes.
It's quite personal, and it's born of like, I mean, like, I haven't written about games properly for like 9 years, 8, 9 years.
And it's still in your system though.
That's what I mean, it's like, it's been in my system and I'm happy to express it.
Yes.
So in other words, it's actually become something else, it's metamorphosed. There's the word I can't say.
Metamorphosed.
Thank you very much, John. Changed into something else, you know what I mean? And that's kind of what you do, you get this kind of like distilled weirdness, and like, I was aware that issue 3 of Die is something I was trying to do all the way since issue 4 of Phonogram.
Yes.
The idea of the critical essay in the form of waltz genre fiction.
Yes.
Like issue 3 is like an expansion of Tolkien and talking about it in various different angles. I mean, trying to find a way to make people like that forever. And maybe failing, because they're the stuff that people always hate. And like 3 was...
You mean the meta story?
No, even more, like the meta or something meta, and it's like, it's just a bit too much. And it's me, I don't think issue 3 was the first time I actually pulled it off, as it reviewed very well. So yeah, it's good. Yeah, probably just, I think there is that, you know what I mean? That's, absolutely 100% comes to me as a game journalist.
Yes.
And like, even more so, like, as well as my ideas as a games writer, and somebody who's lived in game culture, and somebody who lives in culture per se, it's also been more of research. Like, you know, I've done the typical, I've really dug into like I knew a lot and I know a lot more now.
Yes.
I guess. Which is fun because, you know, there's a fundamental journalist part of me.
So you're still there, of the curiosity, the innate curiosity, and if you're going to write something, you have to put the time in to make sure that what you write sounds kind of at least credible.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tower, I mean, like, I said the insecurity is the thing that I read that into, because I know that, like, I definitely do more research than you need. But I definitely put the hours in. It's just one of those things that, I just think it's nice, you know, like, as a writer, I like that, like, you learn stuff, and you're like, oh look, this is interesting. And
What you can use, you can...
Yeah, a lot of my books are about powered by enthusiasm. This kind of like, oh my god, you heard about this? Holding up pictures of whatever. And it's like, you know, Die specifically has got this, the background to Die is what is, you know, there's various, you know, there's stuff about the characters in the world and all that stuff. But the question that eventually kind of comes to says, what the hell is this place?
Yes.
Why does this exist? And I kind of like that conspiracy kind of aspect to it, being pieced together from everything I've learned about like role-playing games, historically speaking, is interesting. You know, it's like, I've said that, you know, the Brontes turn up in the next arc. You know, this is not something I think most people will expect from an RPG comic.
Yeah, because they demand.
Yeah. You can't say no to the Brontes.
No, of course not. So I mean, do you like world building? I mean, obviously Wick Dev was hugely about world building, and Die has elements of that. Is it something that you enjoy as a writer, creating these worlds that you've created almost from whole cloth yourself? Say, you know, this is a new world people haven't seen before. We'll take elements from other people's creations, but it's your world, and Wick Dev, you know, is yours and Jamie's world as well. So do you enjoy world building as a writer?
I'm sorry, world building isn't. I am awkward, is the best way of putting it. As in, like, there's a very much the fashionable take about, you know, people go through cycles about writing advice, and you know, the stuff that becomes like a dogmatic thing and status quo ends up being deconstructed and taken into new form. At the moment, we're well into it, all world building is Bandcamp argument.
Yes.
Which is, you know, I still think it's a slightly kind of like...
sort of a simplistic approach.
Yeah, it's still not true. It's trying to kill your parents in that way. It's like, it's still kind of people kind of saying rude words to Tolkien, which, you know, me too. You know, I'm very well, I lean towards the more cocky and epic poo kind of take. I like to think my world building alters depending upon the book I'm doing. I mean, something like Phonogram is the world building is back to front. As a world, there's no firm world building in Phonogram. That frustrates people. Phonogram is based around the idea that everyone's magic system in Phonogram is A, individual, B, only explains stuff that music does. In other words, if music cannot literally do this, it doesn't happen. So in other words, it's much more of a literary metaphor than a genre metaphor, despite it looking like genre fiction. Versus something like Uber, and Uber basically runs on graphs. You know, Uber is that's like my war game system essentially, and because it's a game that's about material realism. You know, the idea these are fundamentally mechanical laws interacting. So that's the kind of thing. So there's definitely that kind of what is that world building for?
Yes.
Which is like not quite saying world building for world building's sake.
Yes.
Like I'm also quite lazy is the word. I mean, like I feel like I'm lazy. I kind of know I'm not.
I mean, you certain things like ways of shorthand to put stuff across.
You definitely don't need to do the D&D source book for like before you're writing it. That's distracting. But the idea of like what is an interesting world building structure. In case you whipped it explicitly, I have the central myth.
Yes.
I think a lot about like the symbol, the stories, what it's about. But Wicked's designed to also be flexible. You know, the idea that I know that I'm only going to do a tiny fraction of the 90 years recurrences. But at the same time, here's a good point. I did not know when actually all the years happened until near the end.
Really?
It was like that issue we go all the way through time.
Yes.
That was I did the whole spreadsheet at that point. As I'd done the maths to make sure I could set them roughly where I needed to. But in terms of specific years, so as I do the world building as required. It's what as in what you need. It's like improv structure, isn't it? Like the idea of okay, at the beginning of an opening, it's like not even improv structure. This is like a narrative structure, and I don't necessarily plot the whole thing of Wicked, but like I know the end of the first arc, and then the end of the second arc.
Yes.
I know what the first arc, second arcs are about. Like if you're asking what happened in issue 8, I probably couldn't have told you. Actually, I'm lying. I could have. It would have been the dance scene. But like I could have. I know you've got to basically have a structure that's strong enough to support itself, but also be free enough to allow the creator to express themselves.
Yes.
So that's kind of what we're sort of building the Wicked had, as in here's a really good central motif and ideas, and we'll build on that. But something like Die, as you correctly know, Die is a real world building.
Yes, yes.
As in Die is a much more like, I'm doing simultaneously the phonogram world building where you've got these entire realms which are poetic explanations of like Tolkien's inspirations in World War I. So you've got stuff like that, but which is very much like the literary metaphor side. And then you've got stuff which is like, I've literally written the role-playing system. I've written them.
You've created a system that you want to apply in the story.
Yeah, all of it, like they're called
bits of it.
The system is more like an adaptation of Die, but the kind of the bits of Die system that goes back into the comic as well. And it's definitely in my head now become this kind of single sigil to go on Grant Morrison. It's kind of all this is Die together.
It's your abscess comic.
Yes, very much so. I actually was an abscess.
I can tell.
Yeah. But specifically with Die, there's a quote which Greg Stafford passed recently. Greg Stafford being the guy who, very famous RPG designer, he designed like Pendragon and RuneQuest and stuff like this. And there's a podcast I was listening to, Ken and Robin talk about stuff. They've got, Tolkien's Middle-earth is basically a fantasy world as designed by a linguist. The idea that it's a world which is basically
it's a metaphor for.
It's emergent. He was interested in basically he wanted to write languages.
Yes.
You need a world to inspire languages. That's how things work. So that so much about Middle Earth is about linguists. He was and Greg was a comparative theologist, I think.
Okay.
That was his background. I think that's right. Someone correct me. But if you read RuneQuest, it's very much a world that's made by that. It's a world that's based about gods and how people write gods and vice versa. And thinking about that kind of stuff made me realize what Die is. Die is literally it's a D20 floating in space with 20 kingdoms in each kingdom in part of the things that go up RPGs. This is a game world made by Critic. This is literally a piece of criticism.
So Elvis Costello, because they always say that Costello got on with for music critics because he looked like a music critic.
Yes, I love that.
You remember that? It's a great quote.
But like I said, this is literally it's a big meta fantasy about fantasy, but it's also heartfelt enough because you don't fall in love with it. It's that kind of that's the thing I think that hopes it makes it more than just cold exercise, as it comes absolutely from the heart. So that Die is very much a fantasy world as made by Critic and rest.
So, in terms of research, do you ever have to stop yourself and go, I've spent 6 months reading about, something, that's relating to the sort of stuff that we're working on, but you have to say to yourself, I've got to deliver the script next week.
Yes.
I can't immerse myself any more in this because I know enough, because otherwise, I guess if you do too much research, then the piece can become dead, and it's just it's an accurate piece, but it doesn't have that emotional core in the heart that the best fiction does.
I think there's definitely like the Wicked specials. I did one of them but every 6 months or so.
Yes.
And each one was basically 6 months of research. And there's definitely, I think, and the first draft of almost all the specials was deader than the last draft. As in, a lot of the process was me cutting out words. As in, the reader does not need to know me knowing specific wines which Ronan's drank. You know what I mean? Like every word that people don't understand.
Extra colour, which is fun, but it doesn't necessarily.
Also, it's confusing. As in, literally, you'll see that word, and some people just go, "I don't know what that means," and then you gloss them, which is a shame. But it's also true. You're right. The actual deadline for doing research is Stephanie needs a script, Jamie needs a script.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's that kind of, oh, I'll write it now. And you always find, because basically, as you say, it's a 20-page story.
Yes.
Or 25-page story. A lot of it's just like me exploring and playing with the ideas. And it's part of the concept of research. And this is the fun thing. The research is the chance to think about the topic.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily looking for
So to crystallise what you want to do, basically.
Exactly. It's like with dyeing. The fact we had like 2 years developing of dyeing before really. I'm still researching it now. And I'm basically to chew over dye in a very, you know, ruminate. I felt like a cow chewing over stuff. There's a bit of that. I mean, like, issue 8 of dye I've got to write pretty much immediately. And I'm not happy with the amount. I still have some research to do.
Really?
Up to a level I may push some of the story to issue 9 to give myself another month. But yeah, it is always artists need a script. I mean, that's kind of the that's the Alan Moore rule.
The main motivator.
Yeah, in that, you know, if I cannot give this person a script, they cannot earn money.
No.
You know what I mean? That's kind of the only. All my contentions don't really matter compared to like people got to eat.
But I mean, the weird thing is that fantasy and sci-fi, despite the huge success of things like Game of Thrones, obviously had Lord of the Rings a few years ago, and also sci-fi as well, there seems to be a kind of a snobbery. There was probably heard the thing about the Ian McEwan interview, talking about his new novel in sci-fi, because no one's written a sci-fi novel before. And it's this weird thing that, you know, that Game of Thrones is arguably one of the most successful TV series of all time. Lord of the Rings made tons of money, and there were all these things. Potter is huge, and yet there's still this sort of literary snobbery that stuff isn't seen. Someone like Bradbury isn't seen like a proper writer, even though these people, you know, they were genius. There's still that thing. There's still the thing, you know, that the rest of the world seems to find hard to get over.
And I would say, how to phrase this? Literary fiction is not the rest of the world.
No, of course.
I would say, we're sitting in these chairs right now. This feels more like literary fiction. You know what I mean? Like we're sitting in big plush chairs. This is not the real world. So like Ian McEwan sitting in this chair talking about
in this rarefied atmosphere.
I'm more worried about those that are arguing against me. That's what worries me. As in, like, we should be able to.
We're devoting too much time to something which is cares.
Who literally cares? You're an idiot. You know, so like, he's got right, look, but that kind of like, oh no, you're just wrong. And the ability to just go, you're just wrong.
It's a very naive thing to say, you would have thought, because you would have thought he'd be savvy enough to go, you know, there are industries built on these people's work, and you know they've been around for years, and they've done some amazing things. So just, you know, don't say that. Or just shut up.
I mean, they've been saying that forever. It's like, you know what I mean? And that's why it doesn't quite bother me as much. In that kind of like, yes, we've heard this song before. We all know how this goes. Yes. It's a waste of my time to even engage with it. Does that make sense?
Of course, no, that's a fair comment. So I mean, this Die's obviously been a huge success going back. I mean, I'm sure it's something that you try not to take too much notice of, because it can be quite distracting, because you know you're there to write with Stephanie, you're there to create a series, but does it ever become distracting? You go, oh God, no, so issue 3's gone back to press 5 times now, and issue 2's gone back, I can't even keep track now, but does it ever get distracting?
Yes, this is literally, I was saying this to someone earlier, this is the least sympathetic, oh my money shoes are too tight kind of story. But they're kind of like, oh no, it's Thursday night and we've just got to work out another cover tomorrow. Oh, it's so hard. This is like, but yeah,
you sold another 30,000 copies or whatever, we have to do another printing.
I wish. It is that level of, oh no, you don't object to it. Because it's definitely better than the other. Well, I've been in books that have sold nothing as well. But they're kind of, yeah, it does that, especially how quickly it has to be done.
Yes.
And it's certainly distracting for Stephanie. This is one of the most interesting things. Me and Jamie, of course, worked as this team forever. It's like my comics wife. And Stephanie has never really done stuff outside work hard before.
No.
And I mean, she's done, like, you've got to go back to it though. And she ran her own book before, and she's never done an ongoing.
So it feels strange for her, presumably.
Yeah, so I'm like, she's got to be the comics dad. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, that says a lot about the different, like, I have to basically spend a lot of time explaining to Stephanie what's going on and stuff. Yes. And like, it's, you sort of tell the fact that the original, like, all covers have been done with incredibly intricate, and the later ones are kind of like just some tweaks. And that's because I told Stephanie just do some tweaks, it's okay. But she's very proud when she wants to do covers.
Yes.
But I said, no, now we want to differ. It's like she can't, you know, having to basically
take an incredibly complex image that takes weeks to draw.
No, it takes her a day. She's fast. But she wants to do a cover. But that kind of the real an act takes out a rhythm. Yes. So yeah, it's like there is a problem with that, but that's purely practical. Yes. And like that's kind of like you work your way around it. It's fun. I mean, seeing like it's very hard to tell Stephanie. A, I can't tell her anything, she's a partner. But B, it's very hard to talk her out of doing a beautiful picture when the picture is so beautiful. No, so why did you make this wonderful thing? You know, it's honestly, her working with her is really interesting. In a kind of like Jamie's quite, Jamie's been colder than I am. I'm like the passionate one in the team.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, cold is the wrong word. Jamie's, I describe him like the world's greatest music producer. He's all
I'm
about...
slightly detached, in a good way.
You know, yeah, everything's perfect with Jamie. As in
Yes.
lines, and he works out
Yes.
structures, and he really... Small things which would not bother me, bother him enormously.
Yes.
Conversely, Stephanie is... The metaphor I always use the ocean. As in she's very powerful and tempestuous, and she goes the way she wants to.
Yes.
And that kind of like is... Me and Jamie is like this, it becomes all about graphs and like very precision. And with Stephanie is... It's the tissue of her. She's this big, impressionistic, grand, abstractive painter. And I sort of I give her a lot of ideas. She comes back with a lot more. She's like really invents a lot on the page. And in the storytelling, I kind of, this is the key stuff we need. These are the key beats. Everything else is goes. And then I kind of like work around. So you notice that Di is much more captiony than Wictive is. It's partially more captiony because Stephanie's doing more of the impressionistic stuff, whilst
Yes.
I'm doing more of the kind of like basic storytelling. I mean, so that applies, you know,
Yes.
you know, but it's a different sort of relationship, which is so much fun because it kind of like, the last thing I wanted to do was like Wictive again. You know, that's
Yes.
especially with Di, I wanted to do something with not pop music. The characters at least as old as I was. That was like I know the weirdness of how I got into writing teenagers for like 10 years. That was not what I planned. You know what I mean?
It just happens.
Yeah. It was like literally opportunity. Like I didn't. You know, Phonogram was really about late 20s.
Yes.
There was like a handful of teenagers in the second arc. We did Kid Loki, Matt Fraction made Kid Loki.
Yeah.
So like I was planning to do a Loki book. So
Yeah.
I suddenly got Kid Loki.
Young Avengers.
Yes, we asked to do. I didn't ask to do. You know,
No, no.
Axel came to me saying, "Do you want to do Young Avengers?" And I said no. Well, just because I don't think I've any. Young Avengers is a great book, but very different book to what I was doing.
Yes.
And he said, "Think about it," and I found a way to make myself care. And we did Young Avengers, which obviously was, you know, a book people liked. Then, of course, spinning off that, it's like, okay, I guess we do something like our own thing, which builds on the work we're doing in Young Avengers. So in other words, get more young people. And that's suddenly like literally 10 years of my life. And it wasn't planned as such, so I knew that I didn't want to be trapped there
So
forever.
they didn't offer you young Thor then?
They've offered me all manner of. I mean, I've said no to, like, I say no to everything at the moment, but I've definitely said no to a lot of teenage books.
Yes.
Just for the simple reason I don't want to just be that. I mean,
a teenage guy.
Yeah, I mean, especially this, you know, people ask, especially the kind of teenage books I do.
Yes.
So, I said perhaps at least as old as I am, and also a completely different way of writing. I wanted to be slightly more difficult. I wanted to be more complicated characters. It's sort of telling that Wictive has like a cast of 13 and 14, and Di's a cast of 6.
Yes.
By definition, I'll be spending more time with those characters, and it'll be tighter on them. And I'm stripping away a lot of my wankiness, is a word. I don't know the word potential, but like the performance, you know, like wanky I much prefer, you know, wanky is honest. Pretentious I hate is one of my least favourite words. It's like pretentious implies you're lying.
Yes.
You know, like, no, that's just how I am. I'm
Yes.
wanky, you know, wanky's honest, I really am. I am wanky, listen to me.
Quote of the day.
Yeah, sorry, it's like my biography. But yeah, so like trying to like be, you know, I'm also writing about stuff I've never written about before.
Yes.
Like, I mean, not just the topics, but also like something like the emotions, some of the sexuality stuff, and all those kind of like themes I wanted to hit up as well. So yeah.
So Die, is it a mini-series or is it an ongoing series?
Ongoing.
It's ongoing.
It's quite like Wictive though. Like I know
It'd be quite a long series.
But my traditional answer is about half the length of Wictive.
So like 24 issues or so.
Yeah. So that's like 20, 24. Of course the issues are longer. Like Di's 25 pages.
So it's a long page count.
Yeah. So you know, and of course, I think Die is different from Wictive because there's no chance for a sequel to Wictive because it literally has an ending you can't go past.
Yes.
Whilst Die is like, I was like, oh,
So you could do more.
yeah, I could go back. You could go back.
Characters.
I sort of got the. Actually, I'm not going to say that. Ask me afterwards because it's such a good idea. Not a good idea. It's such a me idea. But I don't want to sort of spoil it for people.
Call it Die Another Day.
All very good. Die Hard 2. Yeah. But yeah, that.
So you're also, as well as that, which I'm taking a lot, so you're still doing work for Marvel currently.
Just like I've handed in my. Actually, the last page from my Star Wars came in this week as an angel handed in.
So you have actually finished now?
Yeah, I finished like about a month ago, and that's my last work for Marvel. Actually, I did one more thing for them, which is like a very short thing. And at the moment, I've got no Marvel work. As in, you know, I've said no to everything. I don't want to do any work for hire at the moment.
So you're working on, what else are you working on?
Well, also finished this week was Thunderbolt from Dynamite, which
That must have been a fun series to.
it was hilarious. It's been so much. I mean, I desperately want to work with the team again. They're just this. They're my favourite. Immediately, this feels like a team, the same way that Young Avengers start like a team. So I need to work out how we stay together somehow. But that's really fun. The ending is smart and weird and horrible and cute. Casper and Hassan and Mary have done amazing things. I'm also, so that's going, that'll be in a trade soonish. I'm doing a book over at Boom with Dan Motto.
Oh, that's the King Arthur book.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Once a future, I'll show you some of the ink.
I'd love to see it.
Lean over here and just show you now.
Oh, that's great. I mean, it looks like the Arthur thing is interesting. Seems to be. I mean, I've been rereading Hellboy, and obviously there's an Arthurian connection there. And you have I didn't see the film, the Once Future Kid, but I heard it was pretty good. And it's interesting that the Arthurian. I guess we can talk about that. It seems like King Arthur is still. It still connects with people. This ancient myth.
Yeah.
It's still. I mean, why do you think that is? Is it the universality of it, or what's the reason?
What was the name of the Monmouth book?
I think it's just History of Britain, wasn't it?
Yeah, History of Britain.
History of Britain.
Right, there's one after that then, I forget, there's of the Nature of Britain or something like that.
Possibly.
I know the same one that Arthur's mentioning, King Lear is mentioning as well, so that's the only one I ever remember reading.
Yeah, but yes, basically there was a kind of there's a dialogue of the nature of Britain and Englishness and all these kind of different ideas in there, which is interesting. I mean, like, I tell you, this is the weirdest thing. Being me, I've done the research. And I don't the story idea I'm doing,
Yes.
I don't think anyone's done.
Really?
And that's weird. Like, as in that's kind of like...
Because Arthur's such a well-mined subject.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it's such a basic idea. It's revealed in the first issue. And it's that kind of like, oh right, yeah, I don't think anyone's done this. Which is fun. I think this is like, part of doing Once a Future is I want to do, all my work for hire books are nightmarishly, quote unquote, hard.
Yes.
Like Wick, Div and Die are these clearly like hard work, wrestling with God kind of things. And and my work for hire kind of often be fun.
Yes.
Yes. Like something like Dr. Afro is emotional and pop, but it's clearly meant to be fun.
Yes.
And I'm sort of thinking, why do you never do fun stuff for yourself? And it does make me wonder.
So this is an opportunity for you to...
Dan Mott, who is, trust me, like his work on Klaus has been amazing, always.
Yes.
But I think this is on another level. This is another step up for him. He's such an incredibly state-of-the-art, energetic storyteller. So this is the kind of thing. It feels like the action movie on paper of it all. And it's like the basic concept of Once a Future is about a grandmother-grandson like monster hunting team against the backdrop of the Arthurian mythos. She had no idea. And the boy, the grandson Duncan, has no idea that his grandmother was a monster hunter. And because monsters have all disappeared. There's a line in the first issue which is pretty much, he finds a weapon which he's got. What's this for? Oh, it's for hunting vampires.
What are they?
You hunted vampires. Yeah, I hunted vampires. What happened? I ran out of vampires. And that's grand. She'd be retired forever because literally there's not monsters anymore. And monsters are coming back, and that's kind of where the story kicks off.
So like Buffy with King Arthur.
It is like Buffy, if Buffy retired in that way, and like Buffy in 50 years' time with a grandson who doesn't know anything about this. And the book's, the fundamental moment of the book, and it happens a lot, is Granby must be phlegmatic about something once. Her son goes like this, horror.
So,
so much fun.
So why Boom?
They asked me.
I did ask you. Fair enough.
It was one situation where they came to me with a compelling deal, compelling infrastructure, and Dan, as in,
He's a great artist.
It's like kind of, here is an entirely reliable, brilliant artist,
Yes.
and lots of support. Because with my time, my natural is always through an image book.
Yes.
But I have not got the mental headspace to do another image book. As in, because image books involve a lot more organisation.
Yes.
There's stuff which you have to do which you don't do on other books.
Yes.
So the idea of actually having someone being, and also I've never worked with them. Oh, I lied. I've worked with them once, in 2008. So
Long time ago.
yeah, bear in mind I was a very different writer then. So the idea of and I really like a lot of the moves Boom does in the industry. I mean, also how the announcements of future and then what they're saying, offering to retailers
Yes.
and their relationship with them, that's all really exciting. So it's like, this sounds like fun. This sounds like a fun and easy way to do a book, which I'll enjoy. And I've messed up anyway, because I've done too much research again.
Yeah.
It's like I was reading entire comparative histories of Arthur, like not even reading the legends, I'm reading the criticism around
About
the legends, which is such a neat thing to do.
Are you is Arthurian stuff something that interested you prior to them coming to you?
Not to the yeah, a bit. I mean, this is an idea. The core idea of Once a Future is something I've had for quite a while.
Yes.
It was that kind of like you know, any writer, they've got all their kind of ideas thing they do one day. That was in my idea on maybe.
Box tricks.
Yeah. So it's like this is like I was thinking about how can you do. Oh, I can't tell you that. That's spoiled the story. Yeah.
Okay. Well, obviously you've been a professional writer now for, as a not a journalist, but I mean a fiction writer for 20. Is it 20 years?
No, not 20.
15, 16.
I think that I sold my first story to Games Workshop in 2003, but I didn't actually get work. Then there was no, say 2003 because I was doing like comic strips,
About
like
15 or 16
yeah.
years.
But like I only really had my career starting properly with phonograms. That's 2006.
But now you see yourself, you know,
Old.
as a writer rather than as a journalist after 15, 16 years.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, actually I found myself, the idea I've been full-time, like I was being, the kind of like 2006 to 2010 was a kind of like liminal state.
Yes.
I was definitely like a dual class writer, critic kind of person. Whilst the last 10 years, like since 2010,
Yes.
I've been a full-time, I've just been a comic writer.
Yes.
And like, I haven't really done any serious criticism since about 2012. And part of me is like, I need to change up my gears a bit again, because I'm aware, I look at my career and I basically have 8-year gaps and stuff,
Really?
and then try something, then you see me segueing into something else.
But you still run the blog, don't you?
RPS, no, we sold it RPS a while ago.
Did you?
Yeah, I've stopped writing it, last time I left in 2010, and I stopped writing for about 2012, because I stopped playing video games.
Do you miss
A bit.
working on that, because it's the idea of having like an online diary? Just looking into your headspace, wasn't it? It was talking about how you approach.
I mean, also I keep like sort of my work blog. Actually, my work
The
blog.
work blog is what I was thinking of.
Oh no, sorry. Yeah. But so my
Well,
my newsletter is kind of what I do now. So
Yes.
I do this weekly newsletter, and that's really a chance for me to do like weekly pieces of writing. That's because sorry. The worst thing about being a full-time comic writer is I'm aware my prose has atrophied considerably.
Because you haven't worked that muscle in a while.
Yeah, as in like probably so much of my writing is not done for people to see. It's,
Yeah.
it's done for about artists and writers.
Yes.
You know, so I'm writing about story rather than writing a story. So at least part of the reasons why I've done a few more short stories in the last few years. Like people have asked me and I've jumped on them. We did the Wicked issue, which was a half prose, half art.
Yes.
And this newsletter. So a lot of what I'm doing is trying to get my prose back up to gear because
Okay.
the novel is inevitable.
Is that coming?
Nah.
That's the point.
That's something like it's definitely I'm flirting with the idea, and if I'm
Yes.
flirting with the idea, that implies I'll be thinking about doing it in 2 years' time, that kind of thing. And so,
You heard that first.
I might be crap at it as a thing. It's like kind of I want to do some work and see what I can do.
Yes.
Actually.
So I mean, I guess, is it one of these things where you sort of, the work that you do most recently, you sort of, well, I mean, how do you feel about the work that you do most recently? Is it there's an ambivalence? Once you've turned it in, is it one of those things you either really hate what you've done recently, or it's something you think I can stand up and say that this is one of the best things I've done in this particular field? I mean, what is your attitude towards your work?
I'm going to form the Muhammad Ali here. I'm the greatest of all time. No, it's complicated. Like occasionally you have like complicated feelings about all your work. Like even the good stuff, you kind of I can pick out panels and go, I wish I'd done that. But I must be at the moment, I'm in the worrying position of actually being very happy with everything that's coming out. Like even this, which is rare. I can't think of a time in my career I've been just happy with the work. And it isn't perfect, but in terms of like between Die and Wicked and Thunderbolt,
Yes.
I think these are strong. These are the sort of books I want to be writing. That's what I mean.
Yes.
It's not even whether it's good or bad or not. It's like these are the kind of stuff I want to be doing.
At this precise moment.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, and Want the Future being a different sort of thing as well. And Ludicrous is actually going to happen. I don't want to announce the new artist yet.
Okay.
I have to change it.
Oh, fine, okay.
But that will actually happening, which has been a miracle. So that's the thing is people keep on talking to me, and I just feel in a very worryingly blessed place. As in, I've not been as
I think
happy.
something's going to happen.
Yeah, but at the same time, this is actually the downside of it. Is that I feel like I'm at risk. I see this. I've been doing this long enough that I feel I'm somehow got a bit sloppy.
Do you feel like someone's going to be that long to replace you?
No,
Not literally, but I mean,
no, literally, it's comics.
What, yes.
But I feel like I've been doing this long enough that I can do stuff without planning as much.
Yes.
This is actually one of the things. Have you ever read Alan Moore's essays on comics?
Yes.
And it's like, he wrote his first four, which is Him, Circle, Watchmen, and the last one he wrote, like, early noughties. And it's basically, these are reasonably, usable thoughts like someone early in their career.
Yes.
But he's like, no, the real thing is like when you've actually done all your early goals,
Yes.
when you've actually done everything, like how can you stay interested? And that's the thing that worries me, as in like, I'm aware that I can write a script off the top of my head and it'll be better than most people, and that's depressing because that is like a temptation of you could.
You mean you could just kind of take the easy option,
Yeah.
certain things go, I know I can do this, I don't do quite as much research as I would have done.
Well, not even the research, it's like the research is
Right,
like,
yeah,
but it's just the
right.
writing bit. There's bits I was aware that you should have, there's been a couple of things in scripts recently where I've saved it, as in like I made a mistake at the scripting stage,
Yes.
and I've realised later that I've solved the problem by a few script like dialogue tweaks,
Yes.
and no one will ever know, but I know
But
I
you
did.
know.
But I wouldn't have messed.
No.
Like 5 years ago, I wouldn't have done that, and that worries me.
Should
Yeah.
writing be hard then?
I
Physically
would say
and
it's,
mentally?
I'm not saying it's hard, I just think I should, like, if it's precise, it's precise. It's like, what did you miss? And that's the thing that's bugging me. And that's actually the thing why I think I need to start getting out of comics for a while. Is that the fact if I'm starting to be even a little sloppy at times, that can only get worse. Which is at least one of the reasons why I'm doing stuff which is challenging. I don't know, I'm not my worst critic, because frankly I've read 4chan. But, but I'm pretty hard on myself.
Yes.
But it's not that, I'm saying that's the confusing thing of being a writer. I'm as happy
These
as
mixed signals, all these mixed signals from
I'm as happy as I've ever been with my work. At the same time, I can't but see where that shit's about to sing.
Yes.
Satisfaction is not something that easily happens to me.
No. Okay, I'm going to open it up to questions, so we'll start with Alex.
I was going to ask, as a former critic, how do you respond to criticism or review of your work? Do you appreciate it? Do you read it, or do you let it just kind of slide off your back and it's nothing compared to the criticism that you give yourself?
I just calmly look at, find the mark. If it's low, I write the name down on my special list and plan revenge. No, so one of my
Voodoo doll?
Yeah, no, they're not worth a voodoo doll. Just a bullet.
Or maybe a Funko, a Funko with the head of certain people.
Funkos are expensive. No, really joking aside, because I'm like, I think many creators have never been critics, therefore most creators a lot of creators seem to have no understanding why people do criticism, as in they fundamentally disrespect critics for existing, and I've never been that. I've also been aware that there's quite a lot of people in other art forms, some of the people who are actually hardest on critics were ex-critics themselves, and the problem of course, as somebody who is, because if you know how the sausage is made, you can see what people are doing. And when there's something that's quote-unquote wrong, and there have been times when I'll come back to it in a second. And they're like, Chrissy Hine used to beat up journalists, didn't she? That kind of, Chrissy Hine used to be a critic. That kind of...
Tony Almeida, didn't you beat up?
There's all manner of this
kind of things, yeah.
There's and I would never want to be... I don't want to be that person. So I spend a lot of time being careful with my interaction with critics, and I'm quite encouraging. I occasionally feel like quite parental to some, especially young critics. Like when especially if someone's interviewing me, it's that kind of okay, making sure they've got their tape working, and I feel like I'm trying to help them through and be better, because I've known how hard that job. That is, I've done the job, and I've done the job for no money, with the real fan press. So you're trying to make it as easy as possible. But there's also the fact that there's no way to say this without sounding like a complete monster, but I'm a better critic than most of the people who write about me. So when I read their criticism, I know what they're making. As in, it's not like I read their argument and see their argument. I see, you're doing this argument, which is a tradition. Therefore, I know why you have not thought about this topic. Okay, quite often they're right. You know what I mean? As in, when I see someone who's right, okay, that's intellectually coherent. Yes, you're not my side, but that's great. And occasionally you get stuff, no, you're being a bit cowardly. Yeah. You're using this trick, which I know because I've used it, to hide the fact. The classic and minor thing a critic does is sort of be dismissive to the work without actually saying a work it prefers. Yeah. So in other words, that kind of this is a poor example of the genre of superhero comics, without really staking your master. So what is a good example then? Yeah. You know what I mean? Really basic stuff like that. And I see that, and they're transparent to me. So there's definitely critics I have absolutely no time for. And I wish I could pick fights, because I love arguing not even about my work, just work. But I can't do that. I just don't get to do that anymore, which is sad. Does that answer the question? Yeah. I mean, mostly I really try to encourage people, and I know it's hard. But I do have very high standards of criticism, because it's was a critic for like 15 years, and you know how little money we get.
Yeah.
So that you don't do it for anything other than love. So like, when I see someone not being good,
Yeah.
it does annoy me.
As I say, I figured because you're quite self-aware about both your previous career and the work you do, you kind of see that you are your own critic as well as.
It's I mean, like, and I love seeing people write. Even like, I love seeing people genuinely engage with the work.
Yeah.
Like in whatever way they engage, whether it's fan art or like doing their own story, or like literally writing big essays, thinking about what this has meant to them. That's absolutely, because I'm somebody whose life was transformed by art. You know, and all the art they've consumed. A lot of my work is about how art has changed me. So seeing people basically metabolise stuff I've done in the same way is literally as good as it gets. The idea that people, you know, I know what it means to care about art, and see someone else care about my stuff that much, that's like magical.
Does anyone come to your house to
No.
talk to you about weekday outside?
I've managed to avoid it actually. Like,
It's a serious question.
No, I've actually, no, so far no one has. Please don't. I have people crying at cons quite regularly. You know, it's
What,
like,
we come up and cry
Yeah,
to
yeah.
you? Well,
I mean,
they said they just read the latest issue and
no,
they're
not
affected.
like this book has meant so much to me.
Yeah.
And that kind of like, you see that, like, when I've got
It
friends.
must be quite odd.
Yes, I
As a
think,
writer, to think your work has actually physically affected or emotionally affected people reading it.
yeah, it's odd, but at the same time, as I was just saying, the fact that I'm somebody who feels like that about art, but so when someone does that, I get it. Because I've never gone up to someone and cried at them, but I've certainly cried in my bedroom over how amazing a Nicky album was. You know, that kind of that. So I understand that's holy in that way. So Hammond's regularly enough to have a sort of drill, as in you kind of go into want to support people, but make sure they're okay.
Yes.
Because this isn't about you. This is about them.
Yes.
This is about them, something they have felt to do with the work. You know. So that's what it's about. I
And
always
actually
remember
having a good rapport with a creator who's had that much of an
Yeah,
emotional impact
it's packed
will stay.
So it's
with
like
them,
passing
whereas-
on because you kind of got your passion from. I mean, everyone knows that obviously Warren Ellis was very supportive towards you and he gave you a lot of help. And so it's kind of, is it like passing things on
a bit. I
in
mean,
a way?
you just want to like, yes, absolutely, and all of that. But also, you're aware that if someone comes up to you and is in that mood,
You have a bad experience or something.
yeah, imagine if I was awful to them.
Yeah.
You know,
it would
Yeah.
completely traumatise them.
Yeah, I would say that.
Potentially.
You know,
Potentially. I mean, obviously
you
not.
don't want to make yourself too powerful, but
No,
like,
of course.
you don't want to like ruin the book for them.
Yeah.
So one of my favourite criticism ones really early on. Somebody reviewed Phonogram, the first one, and he made it was like a mid-level blogger at the time, and I really liked this one because it was really negative. He said, I really like I like lowbrow comics.
Yes.
I like pulp action. I like big explosion superheroes, and I like really highbrow art, highbrow like pantographic kind of stuff.
Yes.
What I hate it's sort of the middle ground books which are kind of like semi-genre but quote unquote smart, utterly despicable. And this is literally the most like of that kind of book I've ever read in my life. And I was so delighted because, like, yes,
That's the point.
my entire point is I'm burning down your entire aesthetic structure. You are my enemy. I want you to hate me. And, you know, that kind of like, oh no, all your ideas about art are wrong, and I want to fight you. And that's what my work is for. I mean, that's when a critic hates you like that. That's right, because you know, not all critical beliefs are, can actually
We
exist.
got slated by the Comics Journal, and they used the word trifecta. It was very pretentious. It was quite funny. I mean, I wish I could find it. I wish I could meet the guy and go, yes, this is. Would you like to go for some trifecta lunch? It really was. I mean, it was kind of. You know, there's like people talk about the ultimate gun. This ultimate Comics Journal. This was.
Comics Journal got a Comics Journal. That's the thing.
Well, yeah, pretty much. I was kind of quite flattered. I thought this is quite funny that they've noticed us. Any other questions, Ollie?
So that was a long answer.
Yeah, I'm assuming this is going to be a quick answer.
No.
Is it annoying when Dynamite decide for their own reasons to work with Ethan Van Sciver and then people say, I'm going to boycott Thunderbolt? Or is it stupid because they don't realise it's 5 issues long?
No, I think people can do whatever they. I kind of absolutely support people's. So I'm generally that big long rant maybe actually lose my voice. It's just a bad time to lose my voice. I think people can choose to, stop spending their money however they feel like for any publisher they like. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's.
Kind of vote with their feet, basically.
Yeah. I mean, like, I completely get that. And, I am not. I am sympathetic to that position.
Yes.
It's like, I'm not happy about it either.
I mean, they've been very quiet on it, haven't they?
What's he talking about the
Yeah, I'm talking about that.
thing?
Caesar Van Sciver or whatever he wants to call
Oh yeah,
himself.
you're talking about what he said to the guy.
No, the Cyberfrog crap that he's doing with the
Man,
Dynamite.
the
Dynamite doing very
Yeah,
good.
No, I mean,
I'll tell you
no,
afterwards.
tell me afterwards.
There's been a thing online.
That's
Oh, that's
fine.
okay.
Yeah, it's not, you know, I think that's absolutely fine. As you say, it's only 5 issues. I mean,
Yeah.
we've actually said we finished it. So like, it all broke like after we had like finished everything and we had no idea about it until it was online. So yeah, like, it makes sense. I mean, because people are upset what they
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, I get it.
I mean, is it hard to separate the art from the artist, you think, sometimes?
I think that is a question so large that
No,
I
we
mean,
need 5 hours to talk about it. I'm sorry.
How do you feel about critics? If
Exactly.
you're asking me a serious
I'm
question,
sorry.
it's like no, it's
Because it's so difficult sometimes, isn't it?
it is, and it's one like I think is only even short answer I can do. It's complicated.
Yes.
Like, I think there are things.
No, I know it's incredibly complicated as a question.
And it's like these are lines you have to navigate by yourself.
And you set your own lines and go, right, this is the line in the sand for me.
Yeah.
This is how I'm going to.
Well, someone like him, he's aligning himself so particular with a particular. I think in that instance, it's very difficult.
Well, that's difficult.
In the same way as you're not going to be able to separate Hitler from Mein Kampf, and rightfully so. But I think there's certain examples where people are so entrenched.
Yes.
I mean, his whole persona online.
Yes,
is,
I know.
You
It's
know,
all part of his work.
Yeah.
And it's impossible, as you say, to separate one from the other.
Sorry.
Sorry, no, it is a big question. And one more question. We've got time for one more. Gentleman at the back.
You said at one point that you felt like you were kind of getting sloppy because you were having to go back and fix things when you were used to. Is it at all possible you've actually gotten better at recognising those things and you're fixing stuff that would have slipped by before?
Maybe I'm not hypercritical. That one, that's kind of like, it's really hard to say, and it just feels it's a question. It's a feeling. I think like some of the errors are like that's not a good error. That's kind of like you wanted to get this script out because an artist needed it, and you could have like if you'd actually spent a little bit longer, you would have got this. You're right. I think you're right. As in it's kind of like. Yeah, I mean, you just don't know. That's the thing, is like, this is my natural weakness as a human, one of my many weaknesses as a human being is, anytime I think something good, I'm usually trying to think, why is that wrong? So like, I immediately want to find the reason why me acting in a good way to somebody actually is evil. You know, that kind of like, I've got a very cynical understanding of all human interaction, and that's nonsense, because humans aren't like that. You can actually, you know, so you're right, I should question myself more. I should question my desire to question myself more. But, you know, the fact I fixed it does say something. You know, that's kind of the scary thing, like the idea that you've done it. This thing about like Wick did. The scariest thing about Wick did is we pulled it off. You know, in many ways,
Like the usual suspects.
yeah, it's a bit like the Anank of me, in that all the cats are me, but Anank is me as well. You know, Anank is this creature who's manipulating these people, and I've made all these people think exactly what I wanted to for 5 years. So I am Anank, and Anank is a monster. You know, like all these kind of things are in there, I guess, and that's why all the characters you have. You know, all the positive characters too. I'm quite interested in asking genuinely honest questions of yourself and seeing if you find an answer or not, I guess.
I think we're going to wrap things up. Thanks, Kieron. Thanks everyone for coming. Thank you.